Hey there, it's Michael. I'm here with my friend Tammy Dirdak, and I got this great story from Tammy that I want you to be able to hear about because I think that you really can relate to it. Tammy and her husband Sam recently responded to the calling to foster, and it's been a great thing to watch them through the whole process and see what God's been doing through it all. But also Tammy had mentioned that as she first kind of heard that call, really she wrestled with God a whole bunch. And I'd imagine that some of you have had different times where God's spoken to you and you've really wrestled with how to be able to respond to it, weighing the costs of all of this. And so Tammy, tell us a little bit about that wrestling match and kind of what was going on inside of your mind and heart as you were weighing that.
Well, first, we were just recently empty nesters, and so we pretty much had it made, you know.
Living the
kids,
dream.
Yeah, the kids out of the house, and then this chance to foster a teen came about, and it really kind of shook our lives because, you know, now we're going to be put back not only as parents, but we have to deal with the whole foster system and not even knowing that, the training, and dealing with, you know, a teen that we don't know a lot, and everything's changed, you know, that would happen. And even with God, is this what we're supposed to do, and the time commitment and the battle, because the prayer battle that would go into that, and the heartbreak, or just, and the rewards that would go into it too. So there was a whole element of battle with that.
Yeah, and I loved how you said earlier while we were chatting it through that you think that that's an important part, that wrestling match, because you were able to count the cost, and when things did get hard, which every call has its challenges, it's not that you were able to easily overcome it, you still had to wrestle with it, but you had already considered that. Could you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, for me, I tend to like to totally count the cost, really, how I would call it, you know, unless the labor builds a house and knows the cost that he's putting in vain. And so in my mind, during that whole wrestling process, I was thinking of any scenario that could happen, and it might happen, and you know, everything I could think of what that might entail, and just would I still be willing to do it? And you know, and coming to that point, originally in the foster, it was only supposed to be a very short term, but then part of me said, would I be willing to stay for a long term? And kind of all that would have to be wrestled, give me vacation time, all that. And so I feel it's important to kind of wrestle and know kind of the cost of, for me at least, going into something. So then when the battles do come, I felt like, okay, we kind of walked through some of this, and I said I was going to do this, and I said this is what we could do, and you know, there's other things that would come up, but still, that kind of a lot of that battling happened even before we even agreed to that.
So in that wrestling match analogy then, I mean, what was it ultimately where you tapped out and you said, okay, I'll respond? Like, what was that like in those final maybe moments or that final decision?
Well, for me, of course, it was that heart call of God. You know, you just know that this is the way you're supposed to go, and I knew I had to respond to that. I mean, to not say yes, even how much, you know, hardship or heartache or whatever it would be, there's still that chance. I knew God was calling us to do that, and there's a chance that we can make a major difference to a team, to someone. And so that, I guess really it was that heart call from God that He puts in you, that, you know, although my flesh would wrestle with it, but still kind of even going into the wrestling match knowing that I wasn't going to win, you know, but still I had to kind of, through my own self, had to kind of go through that to come to that.
And I think that's an important part in the whole journey. So, well, I know that some of you have got to be wrestling with some things. Maybe it's, did God really say this? And maybe the wrestling is a really important part so that you can have that confidence to respond to the call. Maybe like Tammy had talked about, the wrestling has to do with counting the cost, and you're really trying to play out these scenarios. Do what Tammy said, listen to the voice of God and let Him begin to speak directly to your heart, because when you get in the middle of those challenges, you're going to need to be able to depend upon that. So blessings to you guys. Have a great day.